Hey everyone, Fina here from Fina Reads. What is October without horror reads? That's at least the question that I asked myself. So I thought I'm doing a quick video highlighting a couple of the horror books that I read not too long ago, with the caveat that if you've watched other videos from me, you know that horror is not my big genre. So I'm just dabbling my toes in the horror genre. I tried a couple of books and I wanted to talk with you about them, thinking that others might be similar to me, you know, avid sci-fi fantasy readers. Horror oftentimes I find, at least the ones that I read, either lean towards the thriller genre or also towards the sci-fi fantasy side of the things. So I thought it might be interesting for some of you who kind of wanted to try horror but maybe have been a bit scared because, you know, I'm easily scared. I don't watch horror movies at all. The moment it gets scary in movies, I'm closing my eyes. I'm done. But the books that I've read were actually really good, and only one of them was actually scary in the sense of monsters and, you know, jump scare type of things. So let's start with that scary book, actually. And that is Horrorstor by Grady Hendrix, or if you believe the title, it's actually Horrorstor, which a stir is a fish in German, which is why I cannot say that without sitting there and being like, that title doesn't make any sense. But anyway, Horrorstor is a very well-designed book. It looks like an IKEA catalog. If you go through it, there are kind of ads for IKEA-like furniture in there, but you have to look closely because that horror element is part of all of the illustrations and the drawings and stuff like that. Plus, the format and the floppiness of that book is actually really great. Horrorstor is, as a quick summary, is a story about a furniture store, a furniture chain store, where every morning when the employees come, open the store and come in, realize something is off here. Things have been ransacked, everything is all over the place, things that have been done yesterday are all of a sudden undone, all of those things. So the store manager actually decides to stay overnight and catch those young kiddos. So he says, I'm staying here at night, and you two employees, or three I actually think it is. Oh no, it's actually three or four employees of his that he asks to stay with him. So the book itself is about that dynamic of those employees, their story. You learn a little bit about them, you learn about their background, where they're coming from, what problems they have at home, why they're working at that retail store. And then it starts getting creepy. And I made the mistake reading that while we were camping on Thanksgiving last year, late at night. Not a good idea. I don't remember there being like jump scare type of things, but there are ghosts and there's some weird stuff going on. It is fun though. I mean, it was not a book that completely turned me off of horror. It was actually really fun, and after, you know, I had a couple of days relaxing and read just some very light books afterwards, I was good to go. From a horror perspective, it was definitely a fun read, and it was definitely already worth it because of the great book and the illustrations in there. The next book I want to talk about is Carrie by Stephen King. I like Stephen King. Although I haven't read all of his books, I usually stayed away from the horror side of things. So usually I like his slightly paranormal books, or the ones that he wrote as Richard Bachman. Things where he is in people's heads and is telling you what those people are thinking while they're going through what they're going through. Like The Game is one of those very good examples of that. Carrie was one that I actually stayed away from because for me it falls more into the horror category. And after I read it, first of all, I thought, why did I stay away from that? It's not scary in the sense of, again, jump scare. And on the opposite, I actually really, really enjoyed it. Just in case you don't know what Carrie is about, it's a book about a young girl who grew up with a really weird mother and didn't have the easiest life growing up. And because of that, got bullied in school, and just, I mean, her life was, it really was bad. I feel really sorry for her, actually. So the book is actually about her, how she deals with that bullying, and then things happen. I'm not sure how much I want to spoil it, just in case there are people out there watching this that have not watched or read Carrie. But, some paranormal things are happening that basically help her deal with that situation of her being bullied. And I actually really, really like that story. I didn't think it was really a horror book in the sense where how I define horror, again with, ghosts and jump scare and stuff like that. It was more on that psychological way, and in typical King manner, he was in her head. He tried to explain us how she's dealing with being bullied by her students and having a mom that is so different than everybody else's mom and not being able to get away and get out of this situation, I actually thought was really, really incredible. The next book that I want to talk about is actually a self-published book, and if you are around on BookTube, you've probably seen it, you've probably heard about it, but that's Nightfall, and I actually have book 1 and 2 here. I've only read book 1 so far, and originally I fell in love with this book because of the cover. These covers in general of that series definitely fall into my favorite covers of all time. It is so beautiful, and kudos to the designer. It fits that story so well. Again, a book I was scared about reading, but at the end, I thought that it was just simply incredible. He is describing a nightmare, and it truly reads like a nightmare. And I find this so incredible that someone has the capability to create an atmosphere like this with simple words in a way that you're just sitting there and you're completely sucked into the story, and you're like, I actually want to wake up right now, but not at the same time, because you want to know what's going on. In Nightfall, you're starting the story in early in the morning, and all of a sudden the sun is not there anymore. And you're following a handful of people and how they deal with that. Everybody is kind of super confused. No one really knows what's going on. It gets into this weird situation where those people start acting irrational. It's just, it is so great. If you want to dab your toes into horror, I highly recommend those. You can get it on Kindle. You don't even have to buy the paperback. I just bought it because of the cover art and such. The Kindles are actually priced really, really well. Give it a try, because there's no jump scare in there. Nothing that you have to kind of, start doing these type of things. I have really seen something that is so well written than this book. So just for that alone, just for experiencing the writing, I highly recommend that you try it out. At least the first book, and then go from there. The next is also kind of a 2-in-1. It's Zoe Stage, and I've read 2 out of her 3 books. For Wonderland, I actually have a review up, so if you want to listen to that, feel free. I go into a bit more detail and explain what that book really is about. Wonderland and Getaway are 2 books that are very different. Getaway is a group of girls, a group of women, I should say, going backpacking in the Grand Canyon. 2 of them are sisters. One is an old high school friend. They haven't seen each other in a while. Something's happened with them before, which is why they said, you know what, we should get together and spend a week in the Grand Canyon just to relax, get back to nature, lose all the worries that we have, etc. Well, and then things happen. Nothing supernatural. So Getaway is, I feel, leans more towards the thriller genre. So you could say it's more that rather than a horror. By the way, Zoe Stage was recommended to me by Jake from The Bookish Drummer. And he agrees with me on that, on the Getaway part, that it's less horror, more thriller. But Wonderland, what a great story. And again, atmosphere. That's the thing that I really liked here about this. So it's a family with 2 kids. They are moving from a tiny New York apartment to a huge lot in the middle of nowhere in, upper state, upper New York, somewhere north of New York City. And they're alone. It's in the middle of winter. It's like November, December timeframe. They are alone. And the mom is kind of struggling with the situation of them moving out into the country. She had an agreement with her husband that once she is done with her career, that he can take over and, start his career and live his career. Already pretty much from the beginning of the book, you realize that she has issues with that and is struggling with that. So moving into the countryside, you are in her head, you hear her thoughts, you get to know more about her and why she is struggling with that. And then things are starting to happen and you're wondering, is that her? Is she going crazy now? Like, what's going on? But then all of a sudden the kiddo says something and you're like, ooh-ha, alrighty. And it is a rather slow-paced book, but the way Zoe Stage sets the scene and explains and describes with her words what is happening is just so incredible. It is a truly eerie scene across both books, Getaway and Wonderland. Zoe Stage is just really great in describing scenery and in describing your environment and everything. So if that is something that you like, I highly recommend Zoe Stage. Alright, that was my quick video on horror books that I read recently and I liked. Again, it's not much yet. I haven't read much horror. That's actually pretty much it. There are some books that you could say are adjacent to horror, like Ring Shout maybe, I don't know. I'm new to this genre, but I thought it would be fun for October since spooky month. And I like Halloween, I like Halloween-y type of movies, not like Friday the 13th type of Halloween-y movies, but I don't know, Sabrina the Teenage Witch type of Halloween-y movies. What is your favorite October spooky read? Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you. And with that, thank you so much for joining me for today's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and that whole, spiel, you know how this works. And then I hope I see you soon with my next video. Till then, have a great rest of your day. Bye!